Python syntax. So this is now lesson 2. And again, our source for these videos is actually W3 Schools. So execute Python syntax. As we learned in the previous video, Python syntax can be executed by writing directly in the command line. So once we type print hello world, then it will display hello world. Or by creating a Python file on the server using the .py file extension and running it in the command line, so like Python and then the file name. So I hope you have already tested this or tried this one based on our previous lectures. Python indentation. Indentation refers to the spaces at the beginning of a code. So this is what we call indentation. So where in other programming languages, the indentation in code is for readability only. So other programming languages, you indent or you don't indent, it doesn't matter. But in Python, indentation is very important. Python uses indentation to indicate a block of code. So for example here, we have if, then we have colon, and then again we should indent. So that means that this one is a part of the if block. This is the part of the statement. Now, if you don't indent, so just like in this case, Python will actually cause will give you an error. So this is a syntax error. The number of spaces is up to you as a programmer. The most common use is 4, but it has to be at least 1. So here I think there are 1 space here, more than 1, 2, 3, 4. So quite a number of spaces here, but both of these will work. So you have to use the same number of spaces in the same block of code. So take note of that. You have to use the same number of spaces in the same block of code. Otherwise, Python will give you an error. Just like in this case, so if 5 is greater than 2 and then print, and then we again indented, but this is not actually this is not a new block. So this will cause an error. So it's supposed to be print, should be placed here in line with the first this statement, the first statement, or this first print statement rather. Python variables. In Python, variables are created when you assign a value to it. So just like in this case, x equals 5, y equals hello world. Python has no command for declaring a variable, so we don't declare variables in Python. Creating variables. Python has no command for declaring a variable, and a variable is created the moment you first assign a value to it. So when you place x is equal to 5, y is equal to John, so that means these two variables are now created. Then we can print the values. So variables do not need to be declared with any particular type. So you don't have to declare it's an integer or anything else. So and can even change type after they have been set. So just like in this example, x equals 4, so x now is an integer, and then x, the value of x was changed into a string. So if you print this one, it will print Sally. So it was initially created as an integer, but later was changed into a string. So you can do that in Python. In other programming languages, of course, you cannot do that because you have to declare and specify the data type of the variable. Variable names. So a variable can have a short name like x and y, and more descriptive name like age, car name, total volume. So the rules for Python variables are: a variable name must start with a letter or the underscore character. So just like in this case, it started with an underscore. A variable name cannot start with a number. So take note of that. You cannot start with a number. A variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters like underscores, A to Z, 0 to 9, and underscore. So these are the only characters that we can use in our variable name. So variable names are case sensitive. So age and age are two different variables. And again, age is again another variable. So here are examples, legal variables. So my var with underscore. We have starts with underscore, that's okay. So this one with uppercase V, that's okay. All in uppercase, that's okay. My var2, we have a digit at the end, that's okay. So these are examples of legal variable names. Many values to multiple variables. So how can we assign several values to several variables? So we can do this one. So x, comma y, comma z is equal to orange, comma banana, comma cherry. So that means that orange will be assigned to x, banana will be assigned to y, and cherry will be assigned to z. So once we print x, print y, print z, so the first one will print orange, so that's the output here. Print y will print banana, then print z rather will print cherry. So one value to multiple variables. So we can also assign one value to multiple variables. So previously we have multiple values to multiple variables. Here we have multiple variables but only one value. So here we have x is equal to y is equal to z is equal to orange. So their values are actually similar. Orange. So if we print x, it will print orange here. Print y, again orange, and then print z will again print orange. Unpack a collection. If you have a collection of values in a list, tuple, etc., Python allows you to extract the values into variables. This is called unpacking. So example, we have a list here. So later on we'll be discussing more about lists. So fruits is equal to, so if you notice, a list is enclosed in square bracket. Then we have apple, banana, and cherry. So if we type x, y, z equals fruits, so this one is actually a list. This will unpack this one. So that means that apple will be assigned to x, banana will be assigned to y, and cherry will be assigned to z. So if we print x, y, and z, this will print apple, banana, and cherry. So that's unpacking a collection. So we'll learn more about lists in later videos. How do we output variables? So the Python print function is often used to output variables. So x is equal to Python is awesome. Then print x, so it will print Python is awesome. In the print function, you output multiple variables separated by a comma. So x is equal to Python is awesome, so for y, and then awesome for z. So if we print x, y, z, Python is awesome. You can also use plus operator to output multiple variables. Like Python is awesome, so print x plus y plus z. So this will produce the same output here. For numbers, the plus character works as a mathematical operator. So if we have x equals 5, y equals 10, so print x plus y, this will print 15. Okay, so it will not print 5 and 10. In the print function, if you try to combine string and number with plus operator, Python will give you an error. So you cannot use the plus operator to combine string and a number. So let's say, for example, in this case, we have x equals 5, y equals John. So if you print x plus y, we are trying to combine a numeric and a string, then this will cause you an error. This will give an error. The best way to output multiple variables in the print function is to separate them with commas, so rather than using the plus. So which even support different data types. So just like in this case, if we have x equals 5, y equals John, so this will, if we print x, y, this will print 5 John. Then we also have global variables. So when we say global variables, these are variables that can be referenced more or less anywhere in your program. So variables that are created outside the function, as in all of the examples above, are known as global variables. So global variables can be used by everyone both inside of function and outside. For example, x is awesome. So x here is a global variable. Okay. So define function print Python is plus x. So you can still reference this variable because it is a global variable. So once you call this function, it will print Python is awesome. And we learn more of this as we discuss more of functions, etc. later on. So if you create a variable with the same name inside the function, this variable will be local and can only be used or referenced inside the function. The global variable with the same name will remain as it was, global and with the original value. So here, let's take a look at this code. So x is awesome. So x here is a global variable. But you notice here, we have x equals fantastic. So this x here is actually a local variable. And this variable is only recognized inside this block or this function. Okay. So once we print Python is x, this x now is referring to the local variable. So if we call the my function here, it will print Python is fantastic. But if we again go out of this function and we print Python is x, so this x now is referring to the global variable because these two variables are actually different. Again, this is the global variable and this is the local variable. So their memory addresses are actually different. So even if you change x here to fantastic, this will not change this value. That's why we have this output. The global keyword. Normally when you create a variable inside a function, that variable is local and can be used only inside the function. To create a global variable inside a function, you can use the global keyword. So define function global x equals fantastic. So my function, so print Python is plus x. So this x now is also referring to this x because this variable x is declared to be a global variable. That's why the output of this is Python is fantastic. Again, the global keyword. So also use the global keyword if you want to change a global variable inside a function. So to change the value of a global variable inside a function, refer to the variable by using the global keyword. So define function global x equals fantastic. So since we have declared x here to be global, so this x now is referring to the same variable here, x. That's why if we call the function my function, the value of x will be actually changed, and of course this will be changed also because these are actually referring to the same variable, the same address. So once you print Python is x, so since we have called this function, it will print Python is fantastic. So this one is actually overwritten, or it was changed by this function. So when we call that function, casting. So if you want to specify the data type of a variable, you can do casting. So this can be done with casting. So let's say for example, x is equal to str3. So 3 is supposed to be an integer, but if you use str3, if we cast this one, so 3 here will be converted into a string. Y is equal to integer 3, so 3 here is an integer. Z is equal to float 3, although it's an integer, it will be, say, stored as a float number. It's a float because we use casting. How do we get the type? So you can get the data type of a variable with the type function. So x equals 5, y equals John. So print type x. So it will say class int. So that means it is integer. Print type y. So it says here class str. So that means it is a string. Single or double quotes. So string variables can be declared either by using single or double quotes. So we can use single quote or double quote. But of course, if you use single quote here, this should be a double quote here, then it should be closed by a double quote. If you single quote, then you single quote to close the string. Case sensitive. Variable names are case sensitive. So A equals 4, A equals Sally. These are two different variables. So A here will not overwrite this one. Comment. So Python has commenting capability for the purpose of in-code documentation. Comments start with the number symbol or the hashtag, and Python will render the rest of the line as a comment. So it's an example. This is a comment and then print hello world. So this is a comment, so that means it will be ignored by the interpreter. But of course, it will be used for documentation purposes. And that ends our second lesson. So thank you very much for viewing this video.